My name is Evelyn Hartman, and 3 months ago my father laughed when I told him I was walking away from an $80 million inheritance. He thought I was being dramatic, ungrateful, maybe another sentimental daughter who didn't understand how business works. What he didn't realize was that I'd already spent 3 years giving up far more valuable things than money. The night he laughed, we were sitting in the same study where I'd once balanced his medical charts beside architectural blueprints. The leather chair squeaked under his weight. His hand, once weak from the stroke, tapped the desk with new authority. "You don't have the stomach for leadership, Evelyn," he said, half smiling. "You feel too much." I remember the sound of the clock between us, steady, cruelly patient. It reminded me of those hospital nights when I counted his heartbeats on a monitor, praying each one would keep him alive. Back then I thought love and sacrifice could buy respect. I was wrong. When I walked out that night, I didn't slam the door. I just paused long enough to trace the frame of the room. I had practically rebuilt the house I'd turned into a recovery ward. Every inch of it carried my fingerprints, yet somehow I had become invisible inside it. He saw a daughter too emotional for business. I saw a man who'd mistaken silence for weakness. What he didn't know was that silence can be the sharpest weapon of all. By the time he read the letter I left on his mahogany desk, his empire would already be shaking. And when he finally looked up from those pages, realizing what I'd done, I wonder if he still thought I was too soft. The first year after my father's stroke erased everything I thought I knew about strength. The board meetings, the Dubai project, the awards, they all dissolved the moment the doctor said he'll need full-time care. I remember standing in that sterile hospital corridor, watching the man who once commanded skyscrapers struggle to lift a spoon. Something inside me shifted that day. I stopped being the promising architect from MIT and became a nurse, an accountant, a therapist, and a ghost in my own life. Mornings started with medication charts instead of design sketches. I learned to crush pills into applesauce to read the tremor in his left hand before it spilled the cup. Every muscle in my body memorized his routine: 6 a.m., insulin, 8 a.m., speech therapy, 10 a.m., physiotherapy. By noon, I was answering corporate emails on his behalf, pretending his voice hadn't turned into my own. "Zoe, my sister called from Paris once a week. You're incredible, Ev. I couldn't do what you're doing," she'd say, her tone coated in sympathy, but never guilt. Her life was still champagne galas, and photo ops. Mine was latex gloves and the faint smell of antiseptic. I told myself it didn't matter. Family meant sacrifice, right? But the nights were the hardest. When he slept, I'd open my laptop and stare at the unfinished blueprints of a hotel on the waterfront, the last project I'd designed before everything stopped. It was supposed to be my breakthrough. Instead, it became a relic of the life I buried without a funeral. Sometimes in the quiet, I'd catch myself whispering to Mom's old photo on the mantel. "I'm holding it together, I promise." She'd passed years ago, but her presence was everywhere in the framed sketches she used to encourage me to draw in the garden she'd planted that I never had time to water anymore. The strangest part was how invisible I became. My father's colleagues stopped calling. Friends faded out after the first few months of "let's grab coffee when things settle." They never did. Even Dad, when he started speaking again, looked at me like I was the nurse, not his daughter. I convinced myself that invisibility was temporary, that one day when he recovered he'd look at me and see the woman who kept his world standing. But the truth came slowly, like light seeping under a closed door. People rarely remember the hands that hold them up. They only see the ones that reach for power. That realization didn't break me, it focused me, because while everyone thought I was disappearing, I was quietly learning how to read contracts, how to manage accounts, how to lead without credit. I wasn't just keeping the company alive, I was preparing for the day I'd no longer need to. When my father finally walked unaided, spring had just begun. The house smelled of disinfectant and lilacs, a mix of healing and denial. I was updating Hartman Group's quarterly reports when Zoe swept in glowing from Paris perfume trailing behind her. She hugged Dad like she'd never left. "You look amazing, Daddy." I stood by the doorway, spreadsheet still in hand. "My girl from Paris," he said softly. His warmth didn't reach me. At dinner, she chatted about European investors and expanding the family brand. Dad hung on every word. "She understands modern business," he said. I nearly laughed. Her firm was a PR boutique for influencers. 3 days later, the family lawyer arrived. We gathered around the same table where I'd once fed Dad soup. Hartman Group needs new leadership, he announced. Zoe will take us forward. Everything company assets legacy was hers. My name appeared once $50,000 and a note to pursue my own interests. Zoe took my hand. You understand, right? You're just not built for business. But don't worry, I'll take care of you. Her manicured fingers contrasted with my work-worn hands. I smiled. Of course, Dad added quietly. There's also a non-compete clause, 5 years. 5 years. A lifetime in architecture. I set the pen down. When do you need it signed? Before the shareholders' meeting, he said, eyes averted. The room shrank. The portraits, the mahogany, the trophies, all symbols of power that suddenly felt hollow. For the first time, I realized I wasn't losing anything. I was being freed. That night, while Zoe toasted her new title with champagne, I opened my laptop. On the screen glowed a logo no one here knew existed: Heartline Studio. Not just a name, my escape, my return. The next morning, the house was a stage, and Zoe was its star. She'd already replaced Mom's photo on Dad's desk with a framed shot of herself at a podium, photoshopped into confidence. The press release goes out tomorrow, she said without looking up. New generation of leadership. Doesn't it sound fresh? I set Dad's morning pills on the counter. The shareholders' meeting isn't for 3 days. That's just a formality, she replied. Dad's already told the board. They're thrilled. She turned toward me, her smile tightening. You did sign the papers, didn't you? I'm reviewing them, I said. Her tone dropped, sweet but edged. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Ev. You're emotional. This is what's best for everyone. The word emotional landed like an insult. I said nothing, but in my mind, something locked into place. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in my childhood room, the same one where I'd designed my first model building out of cereal boxes. On my screen blinked a new email. Congratulations. MedNova Headquarters Project Award. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The company that Hartman Group had been chasing for 2 years had chosen me. Under my independent submission, Heartline Studio. The contract was worth $40 million, more than enough to silence anyone who thought I was just too emotional. I scrolled through the attached documents, every line signed by Daniel Cross, MedNova's CEO. I smiled. He'd once told me that good architecture wasn't about power, it was about precision. This would be both. The next morning I called Marian Ellis, my lawyer and oldest friend. Tell me about non-compete clauses, I said. She laughed softly. Depends on the details. Family members who are formally disinherited aren't bound by them. Why? Because I'm about to make my father's lawyer regret being thorough. Marian understood without more words. Then we do this clean, she said. You sign the inheritance. You take the money, and you announce your firm where it hurts the most. We met that evening in her glass-walled office downtown. She reviewed the documents and nodded. He's left you out completely, Ev. That's his mistake. You can compete freely. She leaned forward, voice crisp. When's the shareholders' meeting? Friday, at the Westbridge Hotel. Her smile widened. Perfect. The press will already be there. When I returned home, I sat at my desk and began to type. Dear Father, by the time you read this, everything will have changed. For 3 years, you saw me only as a caretaker, not the architect who kept your legacy alive. Every project you praised, every design you admired, these past 2 years I drew them. You valued me at $50,000. That's what my silence was worth to you. You were wrong. I printed 3 copies, one for him, one for Marian, one for me. The rest would unfold on Friday. The Westbridge Hotel ballroom shimmered with old arrogance chandeliers, marble, and smiles rehearsed for power. Hartman Group had claimed this stage for decades. Tonight it was mine. I arrived early, blending with analysts and investors. Zoe gleamed in red near the podium, radiant as if spotlights obeyed her. Dad worked the room, his handshake, practiced his charm, recovered through therapy sessions I'd once managed. At 2:55, lights dimmed. Please welcome Richard Hartman, the announcer declared. My father took the stage like a king reclaiming his throne. Today, he said, marks a new era led by my daughter Zoe. Applause thundered. Then a courier appeared with an envelope. Cameras rolled as Dad signed, smiled and opened it. His expression twisted confusion, disbelief, fury. They chose me, Father. Because I'm better. He read aloud. He looked up. Evelyn, I stood. That's my letter and my resignation. The crowd froze. Daniel Cross from MedNova rose. Heartline Studio, founded by Ms. Hartman, has been awarded our headquarters contract, the one Hartman Group failed to win. Zoe stammered. That's impossible. Not if you'd read the proposal, Daniel replied coolly. I walked to the stage, steady. Good afternoon. I'm Evelyn Hartman, founder of Heartline Studio. Every project you praised, the Harborview Hotel, the Phoenix Center, was mine. You just never asked whose. Slides illuminated behind me. Blueprints, signatures, success. MedNova's new headquarters is a $40 million vision for healing spaces that value people, not power, Zoe whispered. You can't do this. I already did, and for the first time my father had no words. By nightfall, every outlet from Boston to San Francisco blared the same headline, Daughter Outsmarts Dynasty. Clips from the shareholder meeting went viral. Dad's stunned face. Zoe's frozen smile. Daniel confirming the contract. For the first time in years, people were saying my name, not his. Hartman Group's stock dropped 8% overnight. Zoe's damage control interview became a meme. Maybe she should have read the blueprint. I didn't celebrate. I just watched the city lights flicker across my apartment window like fading applause. Marion called laughing. Heartline Studios inbox is exploding, job applications, partnerships, even clients complaining about your father. Then Daniel's message, Phase 2 approved. Additional 20 million. 60 million total. In 72 hours. Dad stayed silent. My uncle called instead. Your father's unraveling. The board wants Zoe out. Come back, help stabilize things. I already am, I said. Just not for them. MedNova confirmed our collaboration publicly, a modern David and Goliath story. Contractors lined up. Former Hartman staff sent resumes. Even the lawyer who disinherited me emailed an apology. But beneath the success was a quiet ache. Victory felt heavy, like it had come from the same wound as heartbreak. Late one night, I opened Mom's old photo album. On the back of one picture, she'd written, "Build something that lasts longer than pride." When Hartman Group lost 3 more clients, I didn't feel triumphant, just clear. The empire was collapsing under its own arrogance. Zoe vanished. Dad refused interviews. Their silence was confession enough. And me, I kept building, because revenge was never the goal. Recognition was. A year later, sunlight streamed through the MedNova headquarters atrium, gilding the glass and steel, a monument to resilience, not revenge. Reporters crowded the lobby beneath the inscription. For those who were unseen, yet built everything. Daniel stood beside me. Most people build towers for power, he said. You built one for peace. Power was overrated, I replied. In the front row sat my father, smaller now, guilt making him fragile. He'd asked to attend, and I'd allowed it not for him, but for closure. The best inheritance, I said at the podium, isn't what you're given, but what you build despite being given nothing. Silence followed, deep and genuine. When it ended, guests admired the open spaces and greenery spiraling up the staircase. Heartline Studio had grown to 15 architects, mostly women once overlooked like me. Dad approached. Your mother would be proud. She always was. I read her journals, he murmured. She wrote about you and everyone. I should have read them sooner. You should have seen me sooner. I see you now, he said quietly. It wasn't apology, but it was enough. Later, Zoe came softer, changed. I was awful. If you'd ever mentor me. Send me your plan, I said. I'll look. That night, under blooming cherry trees, I laid a white flower on Mom's grave. I found it Mom, the voice you said I'd have. The petals danced like unseen applause. I felt known. That was the real revenge all along. The next morning's headlines called MedNova a triumph of empathy in architecture. But what mattered was the quiet after the peace of waking without defense. From my office, the skyline shimmered. The Hartman Tower still stood, but smaller now, not because it changed, but because I had. Success hadn't filled the emptiness, it had revealed what couldn't be filled. Peace replaced it. I later visited our old house. The garden had gone wild, vines curling through the fence. Dad opened the door. You built something remarkable, he said. So did you, I answered. You built me. Not the way I meant to. But it worked out. As I left, sunset flared across the windshield, bright, unflinching. All those invisible years weren't punishment. They were foundation. Passing MedNova once more, I saw my reflection layered on its glass, the woman I'd built myself into. People ask if I forgave them. I say forgiveness isn't pretending the pain didn't matter. It's refusing to let it define what comes next. And what came next was mine, every blueprint, every sunrise, every piece of sky I chose to build beneath.